Margaret Moorhead here, founder of the Virtual Sewing Guild. Thank you for joining me today. In the video you're going to see today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do a technique that I developed that I just love. It's called Illusion Applique Embroidery, and it's fabulous. I saw some pillows like this when I was in Hawaii, and I knew that I needed to figure out exactly how we could duplicate that on our sewing machines. As you're watching this video, you're going to see step by step how to do this technique. So all you need to do right now is sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Hi, I'm Margaret Moorhead, founder of the Virtual Sewing Guild. Welcome to my sewing room. Today's project is a project I just love. Look at this beautiful pillow. This pillow uses designs that are from a collection of mine called Mahalo, and this design collection is inspired by quilts that I saw on vacation in Hawaii, and the technique that we used for this is absolutely fabulous. I'm using a fusible batting, and I know you're going to love the results that you get. It's a little tip I give you at the end. I've used just plain old unbleached muslin for the backing part, for the part of my fabric, but we cover it with a beautiful sparkle organza, and it looks fabulous. We're using fleece. This would be fleece that you might make a jacket out of or a scarf out of. Choose the colors that you want and make sure you're going to like the way they look under your organza, this project. So here we see the outline of our heart. We have our piece of fleece fabric. We set it down so it completely covers the outline of the heart, and we're going to stitch the tack down stitch. Once the design has stitched, you'll cut away the excess fleece from around the outside of the heart and from the inside of the heart. Now there's a lot of different scissors that you can use to do this, and you'll just need to find the one that you like best. I actually just like my applique scissors. I know some people find them too big for this process, but I really do like it. I find that they just get in really nice and close. So I'm going to be using these, and I will simply cut around the entire outside of this heart, and when I start the inside, I'll show you how I do that. Now I'm still on the outside, but I wanted to explain that when you're doing this, you do need to apply a little bit of tension to the outside of your fleece so that you can get in there nice and close to your stitching. So I'm just pulling it taut, and that allows me to get in very close. And I'm going to do the same thing on the inside. I'm just going to cut a hole, go over to one side, and then cut. And as you can see, again, I'm pulling that fleece taut. Once I had all of the extra fleece cut away, I put the hoop back on the sewing machine, and I began stitching the next color, which is the placement stitch for our blue flowers. Now when you're doing the placement stitch for them, you can let it stitch from one flower to the next to the next. But when we get to tacking these down, we're going to stop after each flower. And I'll show you that as we go through this. Now the placement stitches are done, and we're going to put our piece of fleece on top of the flower, and it's going to stitch that out. But since we're using just little pieces of fleece, I have to stop this stitching before I go to the next one so I can get my fleece all lined up. And when it gets to the end, I'm just going to stop the machine from stitching. So I'm touching the stop button right now. It advances to the next flower. It'll take one stitch, which is fine. And now I'm going to set the next piece of fleece down. making sure it completely covers the blue outline. And we're going to tack that one down. When it's finished, I'll stop the machine again so I can place down the next one. And I'll continue until all the blue pieces are finished. All of our blue fabric has been tacked in place, and now it's time to remove the excess fleece from around the outside. So just like we did for the heart, we're going to pull our fleece taut and we're going to just cut so we're very, very close to the stitching. Do that. Now we'll go ahead and put this back on the machine. I'll change my thread so I have my pink thread on because that's what I'm going to be doing next. So we're outlining the 2 rosebuds at the top. Then we'll set our fabric down and tack the fleece down for both of those, and then cut away the excess fleece fabric. The color that's stitching now is the placement stitch for the green fabric. Now for the green part of our project. When we do the green, instead of doing individual pieces of fleece, we're just going to use one big piece. You could use this method for all of the parts of this if you wanted. I just like to use the individual pieces since everything's kind of spread out. But on the leaves, if we look at the screen here, I don't know if you'll be able to zoom in and see this, but there's several leaves that are bunched all together, so it's going to be easier to use one piece of green fleece than to do individual pieces. The green is all stitched out. We're placing our one large piece, making sure all of the green stitches are covered. And we'll simply stitch that with the tack down to hold that large piece of green fabric in place. Now once it's finished stitching, we're going to remove it from the sewing machine, remove the hoop from the sewing machine, and we're going to cut each of these green leaves out. Well, as you can see, I just finished cutting the excess green from around my leaves, and I want you to look at these 3 right here. 1, 2, 3. There's 2 spaces in between, and I didn't even try to cut between those leaves because it's not going to show in the end. Remember, these stitches aren't going to show because you're using a thread that matches exactly or your monofilament, and when it's all done, because of the extra stitching that goes on it, you won't even notice that green behind it. Now I'm going to go back and move on to my next flowers. We've moved on to the outline of the pink star-shaped flowers. Once the placement stitch is done for that, we're going to add our little pink pieces of fleece. Remember to stop your machine so you have a very safe way to place your next piece of fleece under there for that flower. Well, once I finished the 2 star flowers, I then did the center flower. So all of my fleece is on my project, and I'm ready to place the sheer fabric over the top. So we put the hoop back on the machine, place your sheer fabric so it completely covers your basting stitch, and the next color to stitch is a square that goes around and holds this fabric in place. You want to make sure that there's no lumps or bumps, that it's very straight and even. So you can see that I'm just maneuvering the fabric to make sure it works out. I see a thread under here. You got to get that out now. If there's any threads or little scraps of fabric, once you put this on, you can't get them out. Once this is finished, it will stitch around the outside of the small rosebud flowers. The pink gives the accent and outlines little rosebuds, and it just looks beautiful. So at this point, all of your threads you want to show, you want them to accent your fabric. So I chose the pink to go with the pink fabric, and I have green to go around the green section, and that's what stitches next. So it'll go around all of the green, and then we'll choose the color to go around each of the flowers as we get to them. Well, we're to the final part of this design, and that is the outline on the heart. And doesn't it just look beautiful? I love, love, love this technique. So the machine will simply finish stitching this out, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next part of our project. Didn't it just turn out beautiful? What we're going to do is just simply remove this from the hoop and set it aside, and then choose a hoop that is the right size and create your 4 corner designs. And once you've done those, then we'll move on to the rectangles with the decorative stitching on them. Well, we're ready to stitch out our last embroideries, and we have our piece of fabric that's fused to a knit interfacing, or in my case, Jenny's Sheer Magic Plus. I've identified the center by pressing one way then the other, so we've got the center of our fabric marked, and I'm going to set that under the needle so it's centered in the hoop. But I also have to remember to put on my sheer fabric. So we want the sheer fabric on this also. Once that's all centered, then you'll go ahead and baste this in place. While you're basting, you want to make sure that everything stays nice and neat. Remember that this sheer fabric can be a little bit tricky, so we want to be sure that it lays really nice without any lumps and bumps in it. So take the time to control the fabric as it stitches. If you have any issues with that, you could use a spray adhesive. I don't like to use that, so I like to do it this way. Or you could, maybe tape it in place. There's other ways you can do it, but if you've done this once or twice, you'll be able to do it without any issues. Now, all we need to do is allow those beautiful decorative stitches to stitch out perfectly by using the embroidery machine. Once you have all 4 of your grids cut out, then you've finished all of the embroidery and we're ready to move on to the cutting. Well, I'm back, and I guess I should have warned you that I changed my hair color since I recorded that video. I love the illusion applique embroidery technique. I think it's absolutely fabulous, and I wanted to share that with you. So what I did was I took a very small portion of a 4-part class that I offer and condensed it down to this small little video that you watched. If you decide to purchase the online class, it's jam-packed with information. You get all the information you just saw, plus details on how to choose your fabric, how to prep your fabric. It goes through the pillow construction. It really goes through everything you would need to create that entire beautiful Mahalo cushion. So if you'd like to purchase that, just click on the link below and you'll be taken to my website where you'll be able to make a purchase. I hope you enjoyed this technique. From my sewing machine to yours, happy creating!